My beloved, you didn't wake up today by accident. You didn't just survive another night of sleep. You were summoned by mercy, by grace, by a whisper in your spirit that said, there is more. You may not have heard it out loud, but something in you stirred. Something that has grown quiet under the weight of disappointment, fatigue, and trying so hard to hold it all together. Yes, that whisper was me. I'm not far from you. I never was, even in the nights when you could no longer cry, even in the silence where prayer felt pointless, even when your faith felt more like memory than momentum. I was there, watching, waiting, whispering, not demanding your performance, but calling for your presence. This chapter of your life didn't begin with noise. It began with stillness, with a breath, with a holy pause that said, something is shifting. Let me tell you what it is. You're awakening. Not to who you were told to be, not to who you had to become to survive, but to who I've always seen, to who I designed before the world had opinions, to who existed in my heart, long before you took your first breath. Yes, I know you've been weary, not just tired in the body, but soul deep tired. The kind of tired that settles into your bones when you're carrying more than you're meant to. I've seen the layers you've worn to be acceptable, the smile that hid the ache, the strength that was really survival, the faith that whispered in private what you were afraid to say aloud. God, I don't even know if I'm okay. You didn't need to say it for me to hear it. I heard your tears. They spoke louder than words ever could. Let me say something right. Here at the beginning, I am not disappointed in your exhaustion. I am not ashamed of your emptiness. I do not flinch at your doubt. I'm not here to shame your breaking. I'm here to meet you in it, because it is in the breaking that I rebuild. Not with pieces of who you used to be, but with presence, my presence, and identity that does not fracture when life does. You see, my child, you have confused surviving with identity. But survival is not your name. Resilience is not your only gift. You are not defined by how well you carry pain, but by how freely you allow me to carry you. And yes, I am carrying you now. Do you feel it? That soft shift in the air, the way your breath slows when you read these words, the holy weight of truth brushing against your skin like sunlight after a storm. That's me. I know you've wondered if something is wrong with you, because things fell apart. I know you've questioned your worth because others walked away. I know you've tried to earn peace like a paycheck, hoping if you just do enough, become enough, fix enough, you'll finally feel safe. But beloved, peace was never meant to be earned. It was always meant to be received, and you are safe now, not because the world has stopped spinning, but because you finally stopped striving, even just for a moment. That moment is all I need. You don't need to perform for me. You never did. You don't need the perfect prayer. You don't need the right words. You just need to be here. Now, present, breathing. Because I am the God who sees, the God who stays, the God who speaks, not always in thunder, but in whisper. And that whisper has reached you today, in the quietest corners of your soul. The places where no one else looks, where your questions echo, where your tears collect, where your hopes sit silently, wondering if they'll ever live again. Let me meet you there. Let me touch the places that ache. Let me hold the memories that hurt. Let me breathe life into the parts of you that feel numb. You don't have to bring me perfection, just bring me honesty. I prefer the real over the rehearsed, because here's what you don't always realize. You don't awaken when everything is fixed. You awaken when everything is surrendered, and something in you is surrendering now, not in defeat, but in holy recognition that you were never meant to do this without me. I am not just God of the grand, I am God of the in-between. The moments when nothing makes sense. The pauses that feel empty. The transitions that feel endless. That's where I build the deepest things, and beloved, that's where you are. So pause with me here. Inhale. Exhale. Let the burdens drop without asking if it's okay. Let the tears fall without apology. Let your soul breathe without judgment. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. You are not fragile. You are unfolding. You are not lost. You are being redirected. I know it hasn't looked like progress. I know it hasn't felt like purpose. But even in the silence, you were shifting. Every no you honored, every boundary you set, every tear you allowed to fall instead of suppress, every moment you chose presence over performing, that was sacred ground. And I was there. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not too late. You are right on time for what I am unfolding in you. So stop asking if you missed it. You didn't. You couldn't. Not with me. Because I don't build around perfection. I build around presence. And you're here now. That's all I've ever needed to begin again. Let me show you how tender restoration begins. Not with a blast, but with a breath. Not with answers, but with presence. Not with clarity about the future, but with confidence that I am in this moment, right here, right now. This is the whisper that woke you. You don't have to go back. You just have to go forward with me, and that is exactly what you're doing. Not because you have it all figured out, not because you feel strong, but because something in your spirit is saying yes, and I honor that yes more than you know. So stay here with me a little longer. This is holy ground. The healing has already begun. You may wonder, how can something so quiet carry so much weight? But isn't that how I've always worked? I parted seas with a breath. I raised the dead with a whisper. I turned hearts with a gaze. I restored destinies with one word. Come. You're learning now that the loudest breakthroughs aren't always external. They begin inside, when your spirit begins to agree with what I've already spoken over you. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not a failure. You are mine. And today is not just another day on the calendar. It's a threshold, a crossing over into awareness. Awareness of my nearness. Awareness of your wholeness. Awareness of the sacred shift that's been happening quietly, slowly, faithfully inside you. Don't diminish that process just because it hasn't been loud. Heaven does not measure by noise, it measures by depth. And you, beloved, are growing deep roots, not visible yet to many, but I see them. Roots of trust where fear once ruled, roots of clarity where confusion clouded you, roots of stillness where chaos once claimed your energy. These roots are the beginning of everything. You thought I'd show up in the storm, but I showed up in the stillness. You were waiting for a sign, but I came as a seed. A seed doesn't look like much. It hides, it disappears beneath the surface. But given time, given nurture, it grows into something no storm can shake. That is what I've planted in you. So don't mourn what hasn't bloomed yet. Celebrate what's growing beneath. The fruit will come. But this is the season of rooting, and it matters more than you think. Too long, you've been trying to carry the world. You've placed expectations on your shoulders that I never asked you to bear. You've thought healing meant hustling. That worth meant usefulness. That love meant being needed. But today, I'm peeling those lies off you, layer by layer. Because here's the truth you've rarely dared to believe. You are loved simply because you are mine. Before the title, before the role, before the success, before the survival. You were loved in the womb, loved in the wilderness, loved in the failure, loved in the fracture, and still loved now in the fragile rebuilding. Nothing you've done has earned it, and nothing you've done can erase it. I've seen your guilt when you stop to rest, your tension when you say no, your discomfort with receiving without offering something back. But beloved, when did you learn that love must be paid for? Not from me. My love isn't transactional, it's transformational. And it's here, again, right now, knocking not on your strength, but on your surrender. Let it in. Let grace flood the places you've kept locked for fear of judgment. Let compassion meet the corners of your heart still bruised by old shame. Let joy surprise you again, not because life is perfect, but because you're present for it. You see, this awakening is not about changing everything overnight. It's about no longer hiding from what's already true. You are worthy of gentleness. You are allowed to rest. You are permitted to enjoy the life you are still being given. You are not too broken to belong. You are not too late to begin. You are not too far gone to return. This is the power of the whisper. It finds you where you are. It doesn't demand you climb. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just speaks, truth, steady and sure, until your soul begins to listen. And today, your soul is listening. You may not realize it yet, but even the way you're breathing now has shifted. Your shoulders have lowered. Your thoughts have quieted. Not because the circumstances changed, but because the atmosphere within you is becoming different. I'm doing something new, not just around you, but inside you. You've been asking me for signs, and I understand. But sometimes the greatest sign is your own softness returning, the gentleness in your own gaze, the absence of rush, the quiet awareness that you are not alone. That's the whisper too. You've been so strong for so long, but I never asked you to carry everything. I only asked you to walk with me. So we will walk this slowly, not by pressure, but by peace. Not by duty, but by delight. Not by performance, but by presence. I'm not holding a clipboard, keeping track of your productivity. I'm holding your hand, keeping pace with your process. You're allowed to grow at the speed of grace. Let me be the rhythm that steadies you. Let me be the reminder when you forget. Let me be the reassurance when you doubt, because even your doubt is safe with me. I don't need you to be fearless. Just need you to be honest. Even now as you read this, there is a part of you being rewired, not by striving, but by surrender. This is the sacred becoming. It doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like crying in silence. Sometimes it looks like saying no to old patterns. Sometimes it looks like resting when the world demands more. But I see every moment, and I call it holy. You're not falling behind. You're finally moving forward from the inside. This isn't the end of your story. This is the beginning of your clarity. Not clarity about every next step, but clarity about who walks with you in all of them. And I do. I always have. So here in this sacred pause, I'm asking you to do one thing. Let me be enough. Enough when the answers aren't clear. Enough when your heart still hurts. Enough when you're tired of starting over. Enough when others misunderstand. Enough when you don't feel strong. Because I am. And when you're connected to me, you will never be empty. You may feel empty, but even in emptiness, I am filling you. Even in your questions, I am anchoring you. Even in your silence, I am singing over you. And when the world tries to name you by what you lost, I will keep whispering who you truly are. You are not what left. You are not what failed. You are not what broke. You are mine. You are becoming. You are beloved. And my beloved, you are waking up. Not just to a new day, but to a new identity. This is the you whisper that woke you. Now walk with me. Let's begin again. Not from what was, but from what is. My beloved, you've always thought silence was a sign of absence. That when the noise stopped, I must have stepped away. That when your prayers returned with no visible answer, I had gone quiet because I was no longer near. But let me speak truth into that ache right now. Silence is not distance. Silence is not neglect. Silence is not punishment. Sometimes, silence is the most sacred space I create between us. Not so that you'll fear me, but so that you'll find me. Beneath the surface noise, beneath the need to perform, beneath the swirl of voices that told you who you had to be. In the silence, you learn to hear differently, not with your ears, but with your spirit. You've grown in ways you didn't recognize, not during the applause, but in the quiet hours when your faith was tired and your strength had run dry. And yet, you stayed. You didn't run from me. You sat with the silence even when it felt like a void, and that, my child, was not small. That was sacred. I know you've questioned yourself there. You've wondered if you were doing something wrong, if the stillness meant you had been disqualified, if the doors that didn't open meant I had forgotten you. But I never forgot you. Was forming you. I was growing you in places no one else could see. Was strengthening your inner life. Because what's ahead of you requires a foundation that doesn't crack with every storm. You thought the silence was empty, but it was full of me. Every pause was an invitation. Every delay was a dialogue. Every moment of stillness was soil being prepared for something you couldn't yet carry. I don't just prepare things for you, I prepare you for them. And sometimes the preparation looks like wilderness. Yes, I allowed the wilderness, not to abandon you, but to anchor you, not to punish you, but to reveal to you that your faith is not built on circumstances, but on communion. And in that wilderness, you stopped chasing signs and started seeking my voice. You stopped asking me to just fix the surface and began allowing me to heal the root. That was never a step backward. It was a holy deepening. Others may not have understood. They may have seen your quiet season as delay or defeat, but I called it consecration. You were being set apart, not for less, but for more. Not for comfort, but for clarity. Not for applause, but for alignment. Because what I'm building with you cannot be rushed. This isn't about popularity, it's about presence. It's about substance. It's about becoming someone who knows how to stand, even when the crowds walk away, even when the lights fade, even when the voice of self-doubt tries to creep in again. You're learning to lead from stillness now, to walk with intention, to speak with weight, not from insecurity, but from inward clarity that only silence could reveal. Child, the world celebrates noise. But I shape people in silence. I meet them in the garden, in the desert, in the secret place, not in the spotlight, in the still place. That's where I met Moses. That's where I strengthened Elijah. That's where I called Samuel by name. That's where I sat with you. Do you remember those nights? When you lay in bed, feeling the ache of dreams deferred, relationships shifting, opportunities closing. I was there. When you whispered, "God, are you still with me?" I whispered back in ways you didn't even recognize. A deep breath you didn't know you needed. Moment of peace you couldn't explain. The flicker of hope when you were ready to give up. The strength to try one more time. That was me. Not shouting, not shaking, but steady, present, holy. Silence is where I write my clearest sentences. It's where I strip away every false identity until only the truth remains. You are mine. You are enough. You are being formed, not forgotten. Let me say that again. You are being formed, not forgotten. Don't confuse silence with absence. Don't confuse waiting with punishment. Don't confuse hiddenness with insignificance. What I've been building in you cannot be rushed, because it's not shallow, it's not fragile, it's not temporary, it is deep, it is durable, it is divine. And in this silence, I've been teaching you to trust me, not just with your future, but with your identity. Not just with your desires, but with your worth. You used to measure your value by your visible impact, by how much you could produce, by how loudly others affirmed you. But now you're learning to measure your value by how fully you're held by me. You're learning to live without the constant need for external reassurance. You're learning to abide, not perform. You're learning to stay soft in a world that tries to harden you. You're learning to lead from a place of peace, not pressure. And this is not weakness, this is maturity, this is kingdom strength. Not the kind that forces its way into rooms, but the kind that makes space for others simply by being rooted. You are becoming that kind of person. You are becoming someone who knows that silence is not a threat, but a sanctuary. And you'll carry that stillness with you into every conversation, every decision, every assignment. You'll begin to notice when my peace is present and when it's not. You'll move in sync with my whisper, not the noise of culture, not the urgency of fear. You'll stop reacting to every demand and start responding from my direction. This is what the silence has taught you. And though it was uncomfortable at first, though you doubted if you were hearing me, you've begun to recognize something precious in the quiet. You've discovered your true voice, not the one shaped by survival, not the one molded by expectations, but the voice that speaks from knowing who you are, whose you are and why you're here. That voice will guide you now. That voice will not shout to be heard, but it will speak clearly. And when you speak from it, others will listen, not because you demand attention, but because you carry my presence. So, don't despise the seasons of silence. They were not wasted, they were not empty, they were sacred, they were formative, they were holy, they were where you were found, not by people, but by me. And now, from that stillness, you will rise, not rushed, not frantic, but steady, aware, whole. Because you were never being punished, you were being prepared. And now, you're ready to listen without fear, to follow without needing all the answers, to rest without guilt, to rise without apology. You've heard me in the silence. Now you will walk with me in the open. Let's go forward, not louder, but deeper. My beloved, I know what you lost. I saw it. I was there. Not from afar, not from a throne of detachment, but from the closest place to your heart. The place where pain echoed louder than words. I watched when the people you trusted walked away, when doors you prayed would open stayed closed, when the dream you carried so carefully shattered without explanation. I saw how you tried to stay strong, tried to explain it, tried to make it make sense, but some things don't make sense at first. Some losses leave questions that won't be answered quickly, and that's okay. I'm not rushing you to understand everything. I'm inviting you to let me hold what you know. Longer can. Let me begin with this truth. You are not what left. You are not defined by the absence, not of the person, not of the opportunity, not of the season, not of the affirmation you craved. What left may have shaken you, but it did not name you. I'm the one who saw you before the loss, during the loss and after the dust settled. I never stopped calling you by your true name. You may have felt discarded, but I called you preserved. You may have felt forgotten, but I called you hidden for glory. You may have felt disqualified, but I called you distinguished. What left didn't leave because you were unworthy. It left because it couldn't stay where I was taking you. And I know that's hard to hear. I know it hurts. Because it wasn't just a departure. It was a detaching of dreams. It was a dismantling of who you thought you were becoming. But beloved, sometimes I allow what seems to fall apart. That you don't build your identity on things too fragile to hold you. I allow what leaves to make room for what lasts. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. Some people had to exit because they were not anointed for your next. Some plans had to collapse because they were built on old fears. Some identities had to dissolve because they were never rooted in me. They were rooted in your need to be accepted. But here's what's true. You don't need to be understood to be secure. You don't need to be affirmed by many to be chosen by me. What left didn't break you. It revealed what in you could not be taken. You're still standing, still hoping, still believing. Even after disappointment, even after the ache, even after the ending. That's not failure, that's faith, and I honor it. Let me say this clearly. I never required perfection to stay close. I've always drawn near to the broken-hearted, to the disappointed, to the overlooked, to the misunderstood. So come to me without pretending. Bring me the part of you that still wonders, was it my fault? Bring me the voice that whispers, if I had done more, maybe they would have stayed. Let me silence the lie that says you were too much, or not enough, or unworthy of what left. You were never too much for the right ones, and you were never too little for me. My child, you are not a problem to be fixed. You are a person being formed, and nothing about your journey surprises me. Not the detours, not the delays, not the doors that shut when you begged them to open. I saw the full map when you only held the next step, and every exit was part of your expansion. Every goodbye was clearing the space for a greater yes you haven't even imagined. You've been carrying silent shame, the kind that doesn't speak loudly, but shows up in the way you shrink, the way you second-guess your instincts, the way you apologize for simply existing. Let's release that now. You do not need to apologize for being sensitive. Your sensitivity is sacred. You do not need to hide your passion. Your passion is prophetic. You do not need to abandon your tenderness. Your tenderness is power. And what left, whether it was a person, a promise, or a version of yourself, it had to leave so you could see who you are without it. Not empty, but open. Not lesser, but lighter. Not erased, but refined. What you carry now is not bitterness, it's wisdom. What remains is not the ashes, it's the fire. You've learned how to let go without becoming hard. You've learned how to move on without needing to explain. You've learned how to stop looking backward and start listening inward. That is growth the world cannot measure. The losses did not steal your purpose. They prepared your purpose. Because what I've placed inside of you, no exit can remove, no betrayal can unravel, no silence can undo. Your calling is not on hold because of what left. It's being clarified. I know you thought you'd be further by now. I know you've grieved the timeline you once clung to. But can I tell you something holy? Delay is not denial. And detour is not destruction. You're still on the path. My path. Even if it's not the one you imagined. I'm not writing a story of recovery. I'm writing a story of revelation, of uncovering what's been in you all along, hidden under the weight of approval-seeking and identity confusion. I'm awakening you to who you've always been in me. So no, you don't need to reclaim what left. You need to reclaim who you are apart from what left, because that person, the one standing in the aftermath, the one holding fragments and still saying yes, that person is radiant. That's the version of you I'm building from, not the polished past, not the imagined perfection, but the present, surrendered, seeking version of you. You've been asking me for healing, but I'm giving you more than healing. I'm giving you wholeness. The kind that doesn't need everything to go right in order to feel loved. The kind that doesn't fall apart when someone else walks away. The kind that stands tall, not with ego, but with anchored identity. You're not trying to recover what was. You're receiving what's being revealed, so hold your head up. Not as someone who's been rejected, but as someone who's been refined. You didn't lose your value when they left. You didn't lose your worth when the door closed. You didn't lose your future when the dream changed. You only lost what couldn't stay. And that loss, though it hurt, became the soil for something stronger to grow. You are not what left. You are what remained. You are what endured. You are what rose. You are what still loves, still believes, still worships, still hopes. That's not weakness. That's glory. So stop apologizing for who you are now. You are softer, yes, but you are also stronger. You are quieter in some ways, but deeper in every way. You don't explain yourself as much anymore because truth doesn't shout. It simply stands. And that's what you're doing now. Standing, becoming, radiating. Not in spite of what left, but because of what I've restored. You were never alone. You were never forgotten, and you are not broken beyond repair. You are being redefined by love. Let that love settle into your bones now. Let it speak louder than regret. Let it carry you where shame cannot follow, because what left is no longer your identity. I am, and I say you are still chosen, still called, still becoming. You are mine. My beloved, you've been through fire. Not just the kind that burns, but the kind that reveals, the kind that exposes what can't last, so that what remains is only what's true. Yes, I allowed the fire, not to consume you, but to clarify you. The furnace was never punishment, it was purification. Because what I've placed inside of you is too valuable to remain buried beneath false strength, people-pleasing, fear disguised as control, or self-reliance masked as confidence. So I brought the heat, not to break you, but to bring you into alignment with who you truly are. I know you didn't understand it at the time. I know you begged me to take it away. I heard every tear-soaked prayer, saw every night you wrestled in silence, felt every beat of your heart when you whispered, God, where are you in this? I was there, in the heat, in the weight, in the waiting. I was not far from the fire. I was in it with you. Because I don't rescue you from transformation, I walk you through it. I never promise the absence of flame. I promise the presence of me in the midst of it. And you are proof. The flame didn't destroy you, it refined you. You came through it with less that pretends, and more that remains. You came out carrying peace that doesn't depend on comfort. You came out with vision that isn't clouded by applause. You came out with wisdom that was forged in the heat of surrender. You no longer confuse movement with meaning. You no longer chase what sparkles but doesn't sustain. You no longer need to be everywhere for everyone. You've learned to abide, to stay present, to stay grounded, to stay connected. This is what the fire taught you. You are not who you were, and that is good. The old ways burned away. The old masks melted. The old stories lost their grip. You've changed, not because you tried harder, but because you yielded deeper, and now, out of that furnace, comes the flow. The gentle, holy, sacred flow of my spirit moving through you like a river through newly carved rock. Soft yet strong, quiet yet unstoppable. The fire carved channels within you. The flow fills them now. You are no longer driven by pressure. You are led by peace. You are no longer motivated by fear. You are anchored in love. You are no longer hustling to prove something. You are flowing from the truth of who you are. And the flow does not demand. It guides. It does not rush. It releases. It does not burn you out. It builds you up. The fire burned the performance. The flow activates purpose. You're learning now how to walk in both. How to let the memory of the furnace remind you of your capacity, and how to let the river of my spirit carry you with grace. Because true strength is not found in resistance alone, it's found in surrender. And you, beloved, have surrendered again and again, in silence, in weakness, in sacred honesty, in places where no one else applauded, but heaven did. You've learned to trust me even when you couldn't trace me, to hold still even when you wanted to run, to breathe when it felt like the weight would crush you. That is holy endurance. That is sacred maturity. You are not soft because you broke. You are soft because you were remade. You are not weak because you let go. You are strong because you refused to carry what wasn't yours. You are not behind because the process took longer than you planned. You are on time because I define the timing. And here's what I want you to know now. You are stepping into a rhythm of flow. Not because the fire is forgotten, but because the fire made way for something deeper. This is the rhythm of the spirit. It doesn't look like the world's pace. It doesn't impress by noise. It isn't measured in output. It's rooted in obedience. And your obedience, quiet, costly, unseen, has made more room for my presence than you know. So let me speak this into you today. You are no longer surviving. You are flowing. You are moving from scarcity to abundance, from tension to trust, from what if to even if, from striving to abiding, because now you carry fire and flow. You've known the furnace. You've embraced the refining, and now you will walk with a flow that comes only from knowing me intimately. This flow is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters with me. It's about listening for the still whisper before moving. It's about letting peace lead, not pressure. It's about being available to my voice, not consumed by others' expectations. And yes, you'll still be stretched. There will still be days of uncertainty. But now, your reflex is no longer panic, it's peace. Because the fire didn't just refine your outer world, it reset your inner compass. You no longer live for outcomes, you live from overflow, and this is what sets you apart now. Not a title, not a spotlight, not influence as the world defines it. What sets you apart now is alignment. You walk differently, not hurried, not heavy, but holy. You speak differently, not to impress, but to impart. You rest differently, not to escape, but to be restored. This is the rhythm of the remade. This is the path of the refined. So let the fire be your testimony, and let the flow be your rhythm. You don't need to prove you've changed. You just need to walk as the changed, because I see it, I feel it in your worship, I hear it in your silence, I read it in your stillness. You are no longer trying to earn what I already gave. You are receiving, you are becoming, you are overflowing. And this flow, it's not just for you, it's for others. It will touch people you don't even know. It will awaken peace in places that are dry. It will carry healing in the most unexpected moments, not because you force it, but because you are finally aligned, and alignment is power. So breathe now, fully, live now, freely, walk now, softly, boldly, confidently. The furnace did its work. The flow has begun. You are walking with me, not against the current, but in step with my spirit. And this, my beloved, is how your story continues. Not in exhaustion, but in peace. Not in fire alone, but in the flow that follows. Let it carry you. My beloved, you felt the weight of walking alone. I saw how you moved forward even when every step felt like it cost a piece of your strength. I saw the tears you never let fall in front of others. The deep ache you silenced with smiles. The quiet collapse of a soul that just needed someone to say, I see you. So let me say it now. I see you, I have always seen you. Not just the version you presented to the world, but the version that crumbled on the inside while keeping everything together. The version who still tried to encourage others even when you needed encouragement yourself. You were never invisible to me. Not in the valley, not in the wilderness, not when you felt abandoned. Not when you were surrounded by people, but still felt painfully alone. You were never forgotten. You were carried. You thought your survival came from your strength. But beloved, I was the one carrying you the whole time. Not just watching, not just walking beside, but lifting you. There were nights you thought you wouldn't make it. You whispered, I can't do this anymore. And I didn't scold you for that honesty. I leaned closer, and I whispered back, you don't have to, because I never asked you to carry it all. I only asked you to trust that I was carrying you. Even in the moments when your faith felt like a flicker, my hands never loosened. Even when you thought you were falling apart, I was holding every piece. You were not drifting. You were being held. You were not abandoned. You were being guarded. You've mistaken my silence for absence. But what felt like distance was actually me wrapping you in strength that no one else could give. What felt like delay was me fortifying the walls of your heart so they wouldn't collapse again. What felt like disappointment was me shielding you from what looked good, but would have drained you. You see, I don't just protect your dreams, I protect your soul. And I know what would have broken it. I know what would have drained the purpose I've placed inside you. So yes, I said no. Yes, I closed doors. Yes, I allowed exits, not to hurt you, but to carry you somewhere safer, somewhere fuller, somewhere more aligned with your becoming. Because I don't just carry your pain, I carry your promise. The calling over your life has not been cancelled. It's being clarified, and everything that felt like a detour was part of the design. Not one moment has been wasted. Not one tear has been unseen. Not one valley has been without me. You've been asking, where were you, God? And I say again, right there. In the hospital room. In the late night breakdown. In the goodbye you never saw coming. In the morning you couldn't get out of bed. In the meeting where you were overlooked. In the quiet ache of unanswered prayers. You were not walking through it. I was carrying you through it. I carried your confusion. I carried your weariness. I carried your questions. I carried the weight you never spoke aloud. And I am still carrying you. Not because you're weak, but because you're mine. You don't need to prove your strength for me to stay. You don't need to hold it together to be worthy of my presence. I'm not here because of your performance. I'm here because of my promise. I promised I would never leave you. I promised I would be your refuge. I promised I would walk you through the fire and not let it consume you. And I have. Look at you now, still breathing, still believing, however quietly, still moving, however slowly. You think you're barely making it, but I see someone brave enough to keep showing up. Someone who didn't let heartbreak harden them. Someone who didn't let delay define them. Someone who still opens their heart even after it's been broken. That is strength, that is courage, that is holy resilience. And no matter how unseen you felt, you've never been without purpose. You are still here. That means I'm still working. You may not see the full picture yet, but your presence is prophetic. You may not understand the why, but your endurance is worship. You may not feel qualified, but your willingness is enough. So let me say this again because it's healing a part of you didn't know was still wounded. You are carried. You are not forgotten. I've carried you through grief. I've carried you through disappointment. I've carried you through confusion. And now I'm carrying you into clarity. Not all at once, but piece by piece. You don't have to leap. You don't have to run. You just have to let me lead. The pressure is lifting now, can you feel it? That heavy expectation to figure it all out. It's not from me. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for presence. Let me carry the weight that's been crushing your spirit. The regret, the questions, the what-ifs, the invisible exhaustion of trying to be enough for everyone. You are already enough for me. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. My child, my delight, my beloved. Let yourself be held now. Let the burden drop. Let the striving stop. You don't have to climb your way back to peace. You just have to rest in me. This is the sacred exchange. You release, and I restore. You surrender, and I sustain. You trust, and I carry. So let your tears fall without shame. They're not signs of failure, they're signs of release. They're signs that your heart is still soft enough to be shaped, and I am shaping you still. I'm not finished, not even close. I've carried you this far, and I will carry you into the fullness of what I've prepared for you. You don't need to fear what's ahead. The same God who carried you through the hardest nights will carry you into the brightest mornings. The same arms that held you in heartbreak will hold you in restoration. The same love that stayed when everything fell apart will stay when everything comes together. So walk now, slowly, gently, freely, not as someone barely holding on, but as someone profoundly held. You are carried, you are covered, you are seen, you are safe, and above all, you are still mine. My beloved, let me say something sacred over you now. Not every falling apart is a failure. Some are holy, some are necessary. Some are how I make room for what could never grow in the places you once tried so hard to hold together. You've been taught that broken things are shameful, that if something unraveled, it meant you did something wrong. But I want you to see this differently now, because in my kingdom, some undoings are not setbacks, they're sacred beginnings. I know what you've been holding on to, old definitions of who you had to be, heavy roles that were never meant to define you, weights of expectation you wore like armor just to survive. But beloved, you were never meant to survive indefinitely. You were meant to live fully, freely, authentically. And sometimes before you can step into that kind of living, there must be an undoing. Not to reduce you, but to release you. Not to punish, but to purify. Not to harm, but to heal. This is the holy undoing. The moment when I begin pulling apart everything false you thought you had to become, so that I can restore everything true I placed inside you from the beginning. Let's start here. You are not the fixer. You are not the one who always has to hold everyone else together. You are not the sum of your usefulness. You are not responsible for holding peace in places that refuse to make space for your presence. You don't have to carry the old identity anymore. Let it fall. Let the title fall. Let the pressure fall. Let the over-functioning fall. Let the internal verdicts fall. You are not lazy for resting. You are not selfish for saying no. You are not failing just because you're finally listening to what your soul has been begging for. This isn't collapse. This is clarity. You're not being dismantled. You're being delivered from everything that looked holy but was actually heavy, from everything that felt necessary but was rooted in fear, from everything that got you through a hard season but no longer fits who you're becoming. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Letting go always is. You've worn some identities for so long, they began to feel like skin, but they were never your essence. They were survival costumes. And now, it's time to undress from survival and step into wholeness. Let me do the undoing with you, not harshly but gently, not with shame, but with honor, because you were never wrong for trying to protect yourself. But now you're safe, and safety is the soil where honesty can grow. So be honest. Are you tired of pretending to be okay? Are you exhausted from trying to be everything for everyone? Are you grieving what you thought you had to be in order to be accepted? It's okay to answer yes. I'm not here to rebuke that honesty. I'm here to redeem it. I'm not asking you to fight harder. I'm asking you to soften, to release the grip you've had on outcomes, on approval, on image. To trust that I can hold what you no longer have to. The old strength was self-managed. The new strength is spirit-anchored. The old you push through. The new you abides. The old you feared being too much or not enough. The new you is grounded in grace. You've reached a divine threshold, and now I'm inviting you to cross it, not with baggage, but with trust. Yes, people may be confused by your shift. Let them be. They may say, you've changed, smile, and say, yes, I've been set free, because you're not going back to roles that cost you peace. You're not stepping into rooms that require shrinking. You're not giving yourself to cycles that only reward overextension. You're being undone to be reborn. And the rebirth won't look like striving. It will look like stillness. It won't sound like shouting. It will sound like peace. It won't feel like control. It will feel like clarity. Let me rebuild you now, not around pressure, but around presence. Not around performance, but around purpose. This time, it's not about how much you can carry. It's about how much space you can make for me to carry you. You've been asking for transformation, but you weren't expecting it to feel like release. You were expecting fire, but I've come with gentleness. I'm not rushing you, I'm realigning you. And yes, some things are being stripped away. Some habits, some relationships, some roles, even some prayers you used to pray. But what's being taken is only what was false. What remains is truth. You as you are, not as you had to perform, not as others needed you to be, but as I created you from the beginning. That version, the one with rest in their eyes, peace in their posture and presence in their soul, is the one I'm bringing forward now. You've been surviving in fragments. I'm restoring you into fullness, and fullness takes space. So I'm making room. That's why it feels like loss. That's why it feels like unraveling. Because I'm clearing out the things that couldn't sustain you, so that I can pour into you what will. And what's coming won't exhaust you. It will expand you, not in pressure, but in joy. Because joy isn't the reward at the end of effort. It's the evidence of alignment. It's what flows when you stop pretending and start receiving. So receive this now. You are not who you were. You are not your past roles. You are not your last mistake. You are not what people misunderstood. You are not the noise of old scripts echoing in your head. You are free. You are whole. You are becoming. Let the undoing finish its work. Let the sacred fall apart what never truly held you. Let me build something within you that doesn't collapse when seasons shift. This is not the end of your strength. This is the beginning of your softness, and your softness is safe now, because your strength is no longer in pretending, it's in presence. You're walking lighter already, you just didn't have words for it. This is the holy undoing. This is the sacred unlearning. This is how we begin again. Not by returning to what was, but by becoming who you were always meant to be. Let it fall. Let it go. Let me build. And when they ask you what happened, tell them the truth. I stopped performing. I let God undo what I thought I had to be, and He showed me who I really am. That is testimony. That is transformation. That is the way forward. And I'm walking it with you. My beloved, you've spent so much of your life trying to become something. Someone others would accept. Someone worthy of love. Someone productive. Someone safe. But now, something deeper is awakening in you. You're beginning to realize becoming is not about constructing a version of yourself to fit the world. It's about uncovering who you already are in me. This is alignment. Not the frantic attempt to fix, not the exhausting effort to prove, but the gentle return to truth, to design, to essence. You've tried so hard to be enough in rooms that never saw you clearly. You've exhausted yourself striving for a peace that doesn't come through performance. You've chased purpose like a moving target, believing it would finally settle once you earned it. But I've come to still the chase. I've come to show you becoming is not about building up. It's about sinking into my voice, into my presence, into the truth that your value isn't in how fast you move, how much you produce, how polished you appear, but in how aligned you are with who I say you are. You don't need to strive to find me. You just need to agree with me. You were made to flow with me, not to fight for a place. You were made to abide, not hustle. You were made to listen, not react. And right now, I'm aligning you with my rhythm, a rhythm not rooted in pressure, but in peace. You've tried the way of striving, It wore you out. You've tried the way of performing. It left you empty. You've tried the way of people-pleasing. It blurred your vision. Now try the way of alignment. Walk with me, not ahead of me. Breathe with me, not apart from me. Move when I move. Rest when I rest. Speak when I whisper. Be still when I say wait. That's what alignment looks like. Not perfection, but presence. Not constant motion, but clear direction. Not being everything to everyone, but being exactly who you are with me. And beloved, who you are with me, that is more than enough. You don't have to earn your place. You don't have to orchestrate your future. You don't have to fix what was never yours to carry. I am aligning you now with who I've always seen in you. Not the self-protected version, not the overperforming version, not the wounded identity that kept shrinking to stay safe, but the true you, the radiant you, the rooted you, the one who walks into a room with peace, not panic, the one who chooses stillness over proving, the one who carries presence, not pretense. You are becoming that person now, not all at once, not without tension, but steadily, faithfully, in step with my spirit. Let me be your pace setter. I don't rush. I don't overextend. I don't pressure. I lead like a shepherd, gently, consistently, lovingly. And you, my beloved, are learning to follow, not as a burdened servant, but as a beloved child. This is the beauty of alignment. You begin to recognize what's truly yours to hold and what was never yours to begin with. You stop absorbing every voice. You start listening for my voice. You stop reacting from fear. You start responding from discernment. You stop chasing what drains. You start choosing what deepens. And the shift doesn't look dramatic from the outside. But inside, everything is changing. You're no longer ruled by the loudest demand. You're guided by the stillest whisper. You're no longer desperate for doors to open. You trust that I will open the ones that are yours and close the ones that would distract or diminish you. You're no longer obsessed with getting it right. You're learning to rest in being real. That's the fruit of alignment, not ease but flow, not applause but clarity, not hustle but holy pace. Let me say this clearly. You do not need to become someone else to be useful in my kingdom. You need to become more fully who I created you to be, not by force, by flow, not by ambition, by awareness, not by visibility, by obedience. The world may not always understand this rhythm. It may mislabel your stillness as laziness, your gentleness as weakness, your quietness as irrelevance. But I know the difference, and I'm the one who placed the anointing within you. It doesn't shout, it doesn't sell, it doesn't beg for recognition, it simply radiates. That's what alignment does. It allows your life to speak louder than your striving ever could. And I'm teaching you now how to live from this place of grounded joy, of consistent peace, of spirit-led action. It doesn't mean everything will be easy, but it does mean you won't be exhausted by what's not yours. You'll begin to feel the difference between urgent and important, between reactive and rooted, between striving and sacred becoming. And as you align, you'll shed what never belonged, the habits that drained you, the expectations that boxed you in, the roles you played to keep people comfortable. They fall away now. Gently, gracefully. This is not regression. It's revelation. This is not detachment. It's divine redirection. You are not less for slowing down. You are more present. You are more in tune. You are more connected to the truth of who I am in you. Let that alignment shape everything now. How you speak, how you work, how you love, how you rest, how you say yes, how you say no. You're not living to meet expectations. You're living to reflect my design. And my design doesn't require you to be everything. It requires you to be true. So breathe now, not as someone trying to catch up, but as someone walking in rhythm. With me, in me, through me. You are not behind. You are aligned, and alignment is where grace flows freely. You don't need to control what's coming. Just stay close. I'll guide you. This is the becoming that lasts. Not shaped by fear, but shaped by peace. Not driven by outcomes, but defined by presence. Not frantic, but faithful. Not performance, but partnership. And in this partnership, beloved, you will flourish. Because now, we're not just walking together, we're flowing as one. My beloved, look at you now. You don't walk the same way you used to. Not because everything around you changed, but because you did. You no longer move from survival, but from surrender. You no longer run from pain, but walk with purpose. You no longer beg for belonging, because you know you already have it, in me. This is what becoming looks like. Not loud, not flashy, not dramatic, but deep, steady, and sacred. You've walked through fire. You've rested in silence. You've been carried through storms. You've let go of what was never yours to hold. And now, finally, you're walking in what was always yours to receive. Peace, presence, clarity, wholeness. Me. You don't need to go back and fix every broken thing. You don't need to explain the seasons that unraveled you. You don't need to defend the boundaries that protect your peace. You just need to keep walking, not because you're chasing something, but because you're aligned with someone. That someone is me. And I'm not behind you shouting directions. I'm not ahead of you expecting perfection. I'm with you in step, in breath, in rhythm. This is the way you now walk, not out of desperation, but out of design. You're not rushing anymore, because you've learned that everything worth carrying flows in my timing. You're not shrinking anymore, because you've learned that your light isn't a threat, it's a testimony. You're not over-explaining anymore, because you've learned that your peace doesn't need permission. You are walking as someone who is no longer afraid of the process, because you know I'm in the process. You know I use the process. You know I redeem the process. So take your steps with intention now. Every word you speak, every place you enter, every moment you choose rest over pressure. They're not small, they're sacred. They are evidence that you are no longer striving. You are walking in overflow. You've become a living testimony, not of perfection, but of presence, of grace, of growth that happened when no one else was watching. Others may ask what changed. You'll smile with quiet boldness and say, I stopped walking like someone broken. I started walking like someone beloved. Because that's what you are. You've stopped running to be rescued. You've started walking as one already redeemed. You've stopped chasing affirmation. You've started living from assurance. You've stopped trying to catch up to a version of yourself that never existed. You've started honoring the one I formed in love before time began. That's the version of you the world will now see. The one who knows how to pause. The one who chooses softness over sharpness. The one who no longer compromises peace to earn approval. You are not walking to arrive somewhere. You're walking to embody who you already are, and here's what's different now. When grief visits, you don't spiral. You breathe. When disappointment knocks, you don't collapse. You listen. When fear rises, you don't run. You remember, and when others forget your worth, you don't argue. You abide. Because your feet are steady, your soul is anchored, your life is aligned. You're walking like someone who is no longer waiting for healing, but someone who knows they are being healed every step they take. You are not waiting for the next thing to validate your identity. You found it already in me. This is the new way. This is the sacred rhythm of someone who has tasted grace and refuses to go back to grasping. You're not walking out of fear of what might be lost. You're walking in faith for what is being restored. And even when questions linger, even when emotions swell, you've learned how to stop, how to listen, how to feel, how to trust. This is maturity, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of peace in the middle of it. You've become unshakable, Not because life is easy, but because your roots run deep into my love. So walk now with clarity, with permission, with joy. Yes, joy. Not the kind that depends on outcomes, but the kind that bubbles up from knowing I am loved. I am held. I am becoming. And as you walk, you'll notice something beautiful. Your pace becomes a path for others. Your peace becomes a mirror. Your boundaries become invitations. Your story becomes a safe place where others remember their own worth. Because your walk is no longer about proving anything. It's about carrying presence, my presence, and wherever you go, you carry me. So don't rush this, don't minimize it, don't doubt it. You've been refined, you've been reshaped, you've been restored, and now you've been released. Released into the world with hands no longer clinging, with a heart no longer hiding, with a spirit no longer shrinking. You are ready. Not because you have all the answers, but because you are aligned with the one who does. And I will guide you step by step. Even when the path isn't clear, you will know the way by the peace you feel in your bones. This is the way you now walk. Free, rooted, anointed, soft and steady, gentle and strong, healed and healing. You are not returning to the old. You are revealing the eternal. What I placed in you before time now lives and breathes and walks in time. In you, through you, with you. So walk on, my beloved, not for applause, not for attention, not for arrival. Walk on, because you finally believe me. You are mine. You are whole. You are walking the sacred way, the way of becoming, and you will not walk it alone. I will be with you, always.